Today, we count down 28 things Japanese kitchens never keep. That includes the cloudy water they refuse to pour down the drain, the one they save in a bowl and use on purpose. Let's get into it. Number 28. Get the salted cooking wine out of your pantry. Your teriyaki tastes flat. Your simmered fish tastes faintly like the ocean floor. Your sauce is too salty and you never added salt, which is the part that makes you feel crazy. Replace it with real drinking sake and true Han mirin, 1 tablespoon of each anywhere. A recipe asks for cooking wine. Ethanol dissolves aroma, compounds water cannot touch, carries them deep into the food, then evaporates and takes odor molecules like the fishy amines in seafood out with it. Salted cooking wine is treated so it isn't drinkable, and that treatment takes your salt control away from you. This is how Japanese home cooks build flavor with 3 ingredients instead of 30. Number 27. Throw away the garlic powder and the jar of minced garlic. It smells sharp and sour in the jar. It tastes like nothing in the pan. You keep adding more and the dish keeps tasting like it has no garlic in it at all. Buy whole heads and grate a clove on a ceramic grater right before it goes in. Allicin, the compound your nose reads as garlic, does not exist inside an intact clove. It forms the instant you rupture the cells, and an enzyme called alliinase meets a compound called alliin, and it starts fading within minutes. Dried and jarred garlic lost that reaction long before it reached your cabinet. This is why Japanese kitchens grate garlic to order. Number 26. No fine iodized table salt. The recipe said 1 teaspoon. You measured 1 teaspoon. The food came out aggressively, unpleasantly salty, and you assumed you'd done something wrong. You hadn't. Switch to coarse sea salt and keep it in an open dish beside the stove, where you take it with your fingers instead of a spoon. Crystal size changes density, so a level teaspoon of fine salt packs nearly twice as much actual salt as a teaspoon of coarse. Larger crystals also dissolve slower, so they season the surface where you can taste them instead of instantly vanishing into the interior. It's what my grandma Yuki did. Out of a little wooden box with a sliding lid she never once closed all the way, taking a pinch between 3 fingers she'd calibrated over 40 years, and she never measured salt in her life. Number 25. Get rid of the bottled salad dressing. Whisk 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar, 1 tablespoon of soy sauce, 1 tablespoon of toasted sesame oil, and 1 full tablespoon of ground toasted sesame seeds. That last ingredient is not a garnish, it's the engine. The ground sesame is your emulsifier because its proteins and fine particles park at the boundary between oil and vinegar and hold the droplets suspended so they can't recombine. Bottled dressing needs gums, starches, and sugar to fake that same stability for 2 years on a shelf. This is why a Japanese dressing tastes clean and a bottled one tastes thick. And since we're still in the pantry, here's the one that changes the most dishes at once. Number 24. No bouillon cubes and no additive-loaded instant dashi powder. Real dashi is 2 ingredients, roughly $15 for enough kombu and katsuobushi to last months. Drop 1 piece of kombu about 4 inches square into 4 cups of cold water tonight, leave it in the refrigerator overnight, then heat it and add a handful of katsuobushi off the heat. Glutamate from the kombu and inosinate from the dried bonito are synergistic, meaning the 2 together register as dramatically more savory than either one alone, several times more, not slightly more. That's why 2 ingredients beat a cube containing 20. Hold on to that number because there's a way to ruin it that almost everyone does, and that's number 3. Number 23, the bottled teriyaki and stir-fry sauces go in the trash. Combine soy sauce, mirin, and sake in equal parts, then reduce it in the hot pan for about 90 seconds until it coats a spoon. Bottled sauce leans on corn syrup, which is high in fructose, and fructose caramelizes at a much lower temperature than table sugar, so it scorches before your sauce has time to reduce. A real glaze thickens because water evaporates and the natural sugars concentrate, a completely different process and a completely different flavor. This is how Japanese restaurants get that dark, glossy mahogany coating that clings instead of pooling. Number 22, an opened bottle of soy sauce does not live in the pantry. Buy the smallest bottle you can find and keep it in the refrigerator door once it's open. Soy sauce doesn't spoil in any dangerous sense, but oxygen steadily degrades its aromatic compounds and darkens the color, and an opened bottle at room temperature is noticeably flatter within a month. There's a reason major Japanese brands now sell it in engineered bottles that keep air from ever re-entering. Most Americans buy the half-gallon jug and then use tired soy sauce for a year. This is why Japanese kitchens buy small and buy often. Number 21. No pre-ground sesame seeds. Toast whole white sesame in a dry pan over medium heat for about 2 minutes until they start jumping, then grind them in a suribachi until roughly half are broken. A whole sesame seed is a sealed container. Its aroma lives in oil bodies locked inside the cell walls, and an unbroken seed passes straight through you without releasing them, which is why whole seeds taste like almost nothing. Grinding ruptures those walls, and the aroma starts fading within the hour. This is why every Japanese home has a grinding bowl on the counter, and most American kitchens have a jar of dust. Number 20, the open bag of rice on the counter is a problem. Move it into an airtight container in the refrigerator. Milled rice still carries a thin residue of bran oil on every grain, and those oils oxidize into aldehydes that smell stale and faintly like cardboard. Rice is also porous enough to absorb whatever else your kitchen smells like. Cold slows the oxidation dramatically. The sealed container blocks the odors, and together they also mean no weevils. This is how Japanese households can taste the difference between rice bought last week and rice bought last spring. Number 19, a black pepper grinder should not be your only finishing spice. Keep 3. Shichimi togarashi for rounded warm heat, sancho pepper for green citrus, and a small jar of yuzu kosho for salty electric brightness. These are not 3 flavors of the same thing. Sancho contains hydroxy-alpha-sanchol, which acts on your touch receptors rather than your taste receptors, which is why it buzzes instead of burns. The capsaicin in shichimi triggers heat receptors, and the piperine in pepper works on a third pathway entirely. 3 nerve systems, 3 sensations. This is why Japanese food can taste layered without tasting spicy. That's the pantry sorted. Now the things sitting on your counter. Number 18, the glass cutting board and the hard plastic one both have to go. Use wood, and if you can find it, Japanese hinoki cypress. Glass is significantly harder than the steel in your knife, so every single stroke rolls, dents, or chips the edge microscopically, and a knife used on glass is dull in a week no matter what you paid for it. Wood fibers part and close around the edge instead of resisting it, and hinoki additionally contains hinokitiol, a naturally occurring antimicrobial compound. I told my grandma Yuki her wooden board was unsanitary and bought her a nice glass one for her birthday. She used it as a trivet for 9 years and never said a word. She was right, and there's a reason she cared that much about edges, but that's number 1, so hang on. Number 17, stop laying your vegetables down flat in the crisper drawer. Store scallions, asparagus, spinach, and greens standing upright, stems down, in a container with 1 inch of water or wrapped in a damp paper towel. A cut stem laid on its side still senses gravity, and the plant spends its remaining stored sugars trying to curve upward again. Stand it up, and it stops burning fuel on a fight it can't win, staying firm and sweet for days longer. This is why produce in Japanese refrigerators is almost always standing at attention. Number 16, eggs never go in the refrigerator door. Move them to the coldest interior shelf and store them pointed end down. The blunt end contains an air cell that grows as the egg ages, and keeping that end up holds the yolk centered away from the shell, which keeps it intact longer and easier to separate. The door also swings through a temperature change every time you open it, and repeated warming and cooling ages an egg faster than steady cold. This matters more in Japanese cooking than almost anywhere, because so many dishes end with a raw or barely set yolk. Number 15, ginger does not belong in the pantry basket. Put the whole knob in the freezer, unpeeled in a sealed bag, and grate it directly from frozen. Fresh ginger is fibrous, and grating it at room temperature gives you stringy shreds while most of the juice runs out on the board. Freezing forms ice crystals that rupture the cell walls from within, so frozen ginger breaks down into a wet, fragrant paste, and you capture the juice and aromatics that normally stay trapped in the fiber. It also lasts 6 months instead of 10 days. This is how Japanese cooks get real ginger into a dish in 8 seconds. Number 14, an overstuffed refrigerator. Keep it at about 70% full, which is roughly what Japanese households actually aim for. A refrigerator cools by circulating cold air, and when you block every shelf solid, you create warm pockets, sitting well above 40 degrees, while the display still reads 38. Bacteria there can double roughly every 20 minutes, and your compressor runs constantly and still can't fix it. Emptier is genuinely colder. And speaking of the freezer, there's something Japanese households keep in theirs that is not food at all, and that's number 8. Number 13, non-stick should not be your only pan. Add one carbon steel skillet, about $30, and it will outlive you. Browned meat sticks to a good pan on purpose. That stuck layer is fond, the concentrated product of the Maillard reaction between proteins and sugars, and it's the foundation of a pan sauce. A nonstick surface is deliberately low energy, so nothing bonds to it, which means the flavor you're building simply never forms. Nonstick coatings also begin breaking down above roughly 500 degrees, and a real sear runs hotter than that. This is why professional Japanese kitchens own almost no nonstick at all. Number 12. A pot with nothing but its big factory lid is missing a tool. Get an otoshibuta, a drop lid that rests directly on the food, or cut a circle of parchment paper with a small hole in the center. A regular lid traps steam at the top of the pot and does nothing for what's underneath. A drop lid forces the simmering liquid up the sides and back over the food continuously, so half as much liquid bastes everything evenly, and your seasoning stays concentrated. This is how Japanese simmered dishes come out uniformly colored and never fall apart from stirring. Number 11, rice does not sit on keep warm all day. Turn the cooker off within about 4 hours and freeze whatever's left. Keep warm holds rice near 150 degrees, and at that temperature, the amino acids and sugars react slowly but steadily over hours, which is what produces the yellowing and that stale, slightly sweet cafeteria smell. Moisture migrates downward at the same time, and the bottom layer turns to cement. This is why Japanese households will freeze rice at lunchtime rather than let it sit until dinner. Number 10, do not throw out your frying oil after a single use. Keep a covered oil pot with a fine strainer and reuse it 3 or 4 times. Brand new oil is actually a mediocre frying medium because it doesn't wet the surface of the food well and browning comes out pale. A little breakdown creates surfactant molecules that improve contact between oil and food and give you better color and crispness. Past that, polymers and free fatty acids accumulate, the smoke point drops, and it's genuinely finished. This is why tempura shops guard their oil like a starter culture. Number 9, a wet sponge lying in the bottom of the sink. Wring it out hard and hang it where air reaches all sides, and replace it far more often than you currently do. A saturated sponge is warm, wet, and full of dissolved food, a nearly ideal growth medium, and the bacteria inside build biofilm deep in the pores where dish soap physically cannot reach. Drying it between uses is the one thing that interrupts the cycle, because those colonies can't maintain themselves without moisture. This is why Japanese sinks are wiped down and left bone dry every single night. Number 8. Food scraps do not sit in a room temperature bin. Keep a sealed bag in the freezer and put every fish skin, shrimp shell, and vegetable trimming straight into it until trash day. That smell coming from your kitchen bin is bacterial enzymes breaking proteins down into volatile amines and sulfur compounds, and it is being actively manufactured every hour those scraps sit there. Below freezing, that metabolism effectively stops, so nothing is being produced at all, and there's nothing to smell. It's not masking the odor, it's preventing it. This is the thing Japanese households keep in the freezer that isn't food, and it's the fastest fix on this entire list. Number 7, raw fish never goes straight into the pan unsalted. Salt the fillet lightly on both sides, let it sit for 20 minutes, then pat it completely dry with a paper towel. Everyone knows fish smells like fish, and almost nobody knows the smell is removable. Salt draws moisture out of the surface by osmosis, and that moisture carries trimethylamine with it, the compound responsible for the odor, so wiping it away physically removes the smell. The salt also firms the surface proteins so the fillet holds together instead of flaking apart. This is the step every Japanese kitchen does automatically, and almost no American recipe mentions. Now the last few, and these are the ones that separate a home cook from someone who is taught. Number 6, miso soup never boils. Turn the heat completely off, then dissolve the miso through a small strainer into the hot dashi. Miso's character is largely volatile, aromatic compounds produced by fermentation, and a rolling boil drives them off in the steam within seconds, leaving something that tastes salty and vaguely brown. The savory glutamates survive the heat perfectly well, which is the cruel part, because the soup still tastes like something. It just stops smelling like miso, and the suspended solids separate and settle instead of staying silky. My grandma Yuki's apartment smelled like this at 6 in the morning every day of my childhood, and I would give a great deal to walk into it once more. Turn the heat off before the miso goes in. Number 5. Blanched vegetables never sit in their hot cooking water. Pull the spinach, green beans, or broccoli out after 90 seconds and drop them straight into a bowl of ice water. Then squeeze them gently dry. Heat and the plant's own released acids strip the magnesium atom out of the center of each chlorophyll molecule, and what's left is a dull olive drab. That reaction accelerates the longer the vegetable stays hot, which is why it goes from brilliant to army green in about 4 minutes. Chilling instantly stops it at the brightest point. This is why the vegetables on a Japanese plate look almost artificially green. Number 4, leftover rice does not go in the refrigerator. Wrap individual portions in plastic while they are still steaming hot, flatten them into thin squares, and freeze them. Cooked starch molecules recrystallize back into a hard ordered structure, a process called retrogradation, and it runs fastest just above freezing, which makes your refrigerator the worst possible place for rice. Wrapping it hot traps steam against the grains, and freezing locks the soft structure in place. Microwave it straight from frozen and it comes back genuinely fluffy. This is why Japanese freezers are full of little flat white bricks. Number 3. Kombu does not stay in the pot once the water gets hot. Pull it out at about 140 degrees when small bubbles start clinging to the kelp and well before any real simmer. Glutamate extracts perfectly well at low temperature given time, which is why the overnight cold soak works. Push the kombu past that point and it releases alginates that turn the broth slippery and slimy, plus bitter compounds you can never remove afterward. 1 minute of impatience ruins 8 hours of waiting. This is the difference between dashi that tastes clean and dashi that tastes like the sea in a bad way. Number 2, the rice rinsing water does not go down the drain. Catch that first cloudy rinse in a bowl and use it to parboil daikon, burdock, or bamboo shoots before they go into a simmered dish. Here's the cloudy water I promised you at the start. The suspended rice starch does 2 things at once. It binds and carries away the harsh, bitter compounds in the vegetable, and it forms a thin coating on the surface that buffers the heat, so the daikon cooks through to translucent without its edges collapsing into mush. This is how Japanese restaurants get daikon that is completely tender and still holds a perfect square. And here we are at number 1. Number 1, a Japanese kitchen never keeps a knife that has not touched a whetstone. Buy a combination stone, about $30, 1,000 grit on one side and 6,000 on the other, and give your main knife 10 minutes once a month. A dull blade doesn't cut cells, it crushes them. And crushed cells dump their enzymes and their water, which is why your basil turns black, your tomatoes weep, and your onions make you cry twice as hard. Japanese knives are hardened well past 60 on the Rockwell scale, which is why the steel rod in your knife block does nothing for them and a stone does everything. My grandma Yuki sharpened hers every Sunday and never explained why. She just took the knife out of my hand and moved my wrist to the right angle without a word. She wasn't withholding anything. She just thought it was obvious. So there you have it, 28 things Japanese kitchens never keep, and the 28 things that go in their place. Don't try to do all of it today. Pick 3 or 4 this week. Stand your vegetables up, move your soy sauce to the refrigerator, salt your fish, and blot it before it hits the pan, and buy the stone. Your cooking will get noticeably better within about a week, and most of these cost you nothing at all. A few of these came from my grandma Yuki, who never explained a single one of them, and who'd be quietly pleased they're in your kitchen now. Drop a comment and tell me the one thing your grandmother did in the kitchen that you never understood until much later. And subscribe if you want more deep dives like this one, because I have a lot more coming, and I'll see you in the next video.